Hello and welcome to watchandlearnphotoshop.com. In today's video tip, I'm going to show you how to create kind of a glossy reflective effect on your text or on a logo or something like that. In Photoshop, I'm going to create a new file and we'll make this 600 by 200. Click OK. There we go. Now I'm going to just, first of all, I'm going to fill the background with black. So with the background selected and black selected as our foreground color, I'm going to hit Alt Backspace to fill that in. There we go. Now let's create some text on the stage. It doesn't matter what color the text is going to be because we're going to change it in the blending modes. So I'm just going to create some white text. And we're going to type in here, reflect. Alright, now let's move this to the center of the stage. There we go. Okay, now for this effect you want a nice bold text. You don't want narrow letters, you want nice thick letters like this. And you'll see why in a moment. Alright, now we're going to apply some layer styles to this. And we can get to that quickly just by double clicking on this reflect layer over here to the right. We'll double click over there. And that will bring up our layer styles dialog box. Now the first thing we want to do is we want to add a color gradient to our text here. We're going to have it fade from dark red at the bottom to a lighter red up at the top. So we're going to click on gradient overlay. And by default it's going up and down. So we want this color on the left to be a dark red because that's the color on the bottom, and the color on the right to be a lighter red. So we're going to click on this gradient bar. And now we can double click on this left handle and select a dark red color. Click on OK. And then double click on this right handle and select a lighter red color and click OK. Once you have that selected, click on OK. And there's our basic color. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to add a stroke around the outside, just a white stroke. So we'll click on stroke here. We'll change the color. Click on the color and select white. Click on OK. And I'm just going to choose a 3-pixel stroke. That'll work. Now we want to give this a little bit of a sense of depth. So I'm going to choose a bevel and emboss. Now we don't want it a lot here. We just kind of want to give it a small illusion of depth. So let's change the size here to about 3, and then let's soften that up. Let's bring that soften up to 2 or 3 pixels. Alright, now let's create an inner glow. And let's just use the default settings here for the inner glow. And that looks pretty good. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to create a glossy reflection that you might have seen on a lot of logos where there's a slight white, it looks like a white reflection over the top of the letters, and it's going to have kind of a wavy shape to it. So we're going to create this in a layer above our reflect layer. So let's create a new layer. Make sure that layer is situated above the reflect layer. Let's double click on the layer name, and let's just call this reflection. Okay, now we're just going to create a shape. We're going to do this using the pen tool. Once you have the pen tool selected, make sure that you have this shape layers selected. And I have white selected as my foreground color here, so that's going to be the color of the shape that we create. Now I'm going to start off just by clicking over here to the left of the word, and then clicking over here again to the right of the text. And we've just created a line going across. We're going to finish up this line by creating it into a rectangle that's going to appear over the top half of the text. But before we do that, let's make this line wavy. So I'm going to click, somewhere about 1/3 of the way across the line to add another point there. And then I'm going to move that point by holding on to Control and clicking and dragging that point. We'll just drag it upwards. Alright, then let's create another point about 2/3 of the way across. We'll just click on the line to add another point there, and then hold on to Control and drag that point down. So now we have this nice little wave going on here. Alright, now we want to close off a rectangle here, so we're going to take this final point over here on the right, and we're going to create a couple more points to make this into somewhat of a rectangle, and then we'll close that off. There we go, we have our shape. Okay, now what we want to do is just rasterize this layer. So I'm going to right click on that layer, click on rasterize layer. There we go, so we've just made this into a raw. And now what we want to do is we want to take the shape that we've created and we want to put it inside this text. We have it where we want it, we just want to make sure that it's only visible inside the text. So what we're going to do is we're going to control click on the preview panel for the reflect layer. So I'm going to hold on to control and click on that little T for the text, and that will create a selection for the text. Okay, now we still have the reflection layer selected here, and we want to delete everything outside our text here. First, I want to contract this selection a little bit, so I'm going to go to Select, Modify, Contract, and we'll contract that by about 3 pixels. Click on OK, and you'll notice the edges of that selection have come in a little bit. And now what we want to do, if we want to delete everything outside of a selection, first we need to invert the selection. So to invert it, we'll hit Control Shift and I, and you'll notice now that there is a selection going around the outside, and we still have that selection in the center here. That means it has been inverted, so everything that is selected is everything outside of our original selection. So we can hit Delete now to get rid of everything outside that original selection. There we go. Now we can hit Control D to deselect everything. There we go. Now all we need to do to finish this effect is bring down the opacity of this reflection layer. So with this reflection layer selected, I'm just going to bring that opacity slider down to about 20%, 20-25%, and there we go. You'll see that familiar reflection effect that you might have seen, and many logos all over the place. So that's a quick and simple way to create a reflection effect. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you can find some creative ways to apply this to your own Photoshop projects. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.